You should have talked about your date more.
I didn't have a date, dude. Plus, this is like censored, super censored information, super classified. Like, I'm such a furniture slut. Bogey, for your information, dogs are not allowed in the studio. Bogey. Bogey. Spray. Welcome to another episode of the Dope Designer Club. Today, I want to just talk about some recent summer things that have been going on, and hopefully we'll issue the episode before all this becomes stale and boring. So first I want to talk about my traveling. I did this epic trip to Europe and visited some family. My father lives in Switzerland, so the trip started there, and then we went to Italy and Croatia, where I also have a bunch of family. So my dad is one of five, and recently we had a death in the family, and I thought that I would spend some time with this side of my family, and it was, I guess, life-changing in a way, but I also want to mention a few things that happened to us in Switzerland that I think are relevant to some of the topics I explore on this show. Switzerland is a country that I haven't visited for a very long time. And going back at this stage in my life, it was a little bit different. Switzerland to me represents a lot of culture, a lot of high culture. There's a lot of museums there. In the first, I think, 5 days, we've been to 5 museums. We've been to a little local gallery that's supported by, there's a lot of manufacturing, I guess, in Switzerland. And actually, Neil, one of my guests, and I, we talked about it a little bit because he has a history with Switzerland. So one of the things that I was really impressed with in this like little industrial sort of part of town, there was one of the actually factories was my dad used to work at Veleda. He's retired now. But right next to it is another company called Wurt, and they make little parts, like some kind of like, I don't know what to call those, like screws or things like that, very mechanical, very kind of mundane, but they have a beautiful gallery and museum. And so people who work there can visit this gallery and they change it. You know, the artists, they exhibit and enjoy the art. And so it was just so nice that, you know, art becomes a part of the everyday. So there, I discovered this amazing painter, Christopher Landful, who uses paint like sculpture. So this is the book that I got. We got some other cool stuff actually at that store. We got some posters, which weren't posters, they were wrapping paper, but I was planning on actually using them as posters. They're neon, and the woman that actually works there makes them. She's like a graphic artist. Anyways, like the minute we get there, it's like very inspiring. And the other thing that I really liked about this artist is that his focus is, he does landscapes, but he also does cities. And, you know, in one of the cities that he explores is Berlin. So he's German, Berlin. So I thought it was like, in some ways, an homage to the city. And I haven't really been doing this much, but one of my original ideas was actually for this show to be very LA. So even in the name, you know, Dope Designer Club. But anyways, like the minute we get there, it's like art, culture. And one of my guests, Eames, talks about how arts, like creativity, doesn't just belong in the realm of arts. Creativity belongs in the everyday. And so to me, this experience was exactly that. I mean, yes, we're on vacation, but like a bunch of people there work there every day, go to lunch every day, and they get to, you know, discover wonderful artists and, you know, have their everyday uplifted by these types of experiences. So I was so impressed with this foundation that I ended up reaching out to them, and I'm hoping to somehow arrange an interview. I don't know how, but I was just impressed with that gesture. Some other museums that we visited was Vitra, obviously. Like, I'm such a furniture slut. But Vitra was wonderful. You know, this type of furniture I'm very familiar with, but I love their garden. I love their garden. I know this art. I mean, there's a lot of famous architects that have designed the different buildings on their campus, but for me, it was the garden, and I want to replicate this garden. Another museum that we visited was a paper museum. So Basel has a very, I guess, old tradition of printing and paper, and we got to make, my daughter and I got to make our own paper. So there's something also about, you know, making something of your own, and I try to have a paperless practice, but this paper is special. So elevating something like that is I think also important, because like when you make something yourself, you keep it forever, versus paper that we have that we just toss and pollute the environment with. Then we went to Lausanne, where we went to probably my favorite museum, which is the Charlie Chaplin Museum. So Charlie Chaplin, I don't know if you know this, but he ended up retiring in Switzerland because he was accused of being a communist. And moved his entire family. He had a bunch of children, like 5 or 6 kids. And they built this family house in this beautiful environment in nature. And a big part of the museum is actually their house. And, you know, I went on this essentially trip to reconnect with my family, and it really was very touching for me how much family mattered to him, and how this family was so close and had all this fun and joy, you know, in kind of just how it was represented in this house. Another part of the museum was brilliant. Like the way the museum was designed, to me as an architect, and you know, my dream is to design a museum. That's kind of like my ultimate project. Was brilliant. You watch a movie, it's a 10 to 15 minute movie about Charlie Chaplin, and then the screen lifts and you walk into the rest of the exhibition, which was a very powerful moment. And when you think about like museum design and exhibition design, this was such a brilliant way, you know, like to remove the fourth wall, literally, and walk into his world. And I'm getting goosebumps just like telling you about it. But that was such a great kind of tectonic shift, I think, in the way I thought about, I guess, Charlie Chaplin, who I do admire. But I think for me, it was also, you know, I was just kind of reminded about like the timelessness of his message, and just what a genius this guy was. Oh yeah, so this is from the Charlie Chaplin Museum. Love it. Yeah, you know, I also kind of wonder, all of these big foundations and companies that have devoted a lot of resources toward supporting the arts and creativity. Do we really have that here or not? And is that something that we as a society, even as a, you know, or corporations, you know, do we or people, do we have some kind of responsibility in kind of promoting and uplifting our culture? I think so. I'm a big proponent of that. One of my guests, Mila, and I talk about it in one of our episodes. But I think that discussion was more, I guess, oriented in the direction of whether the state is responsible in promoting culture or not. In Switzerland, I think a lot of these things are formalized because there's a lot of wealth, and there's a lot of resources to build these museums, to support these artists, to create these programs and residencies and all of these things, which I'm not sure that our system here is kind of set up the same way, or maybe we don't value the same things. But I was blown away by it, and I'm very happy to be able to share some of this with you. I'm really hoping that I could, in the future, do a few of these interviews with the people that I mentioned, Worth, but also like one of these foundations that promotes writers, because it's not just like visual arts, it's also the craft of making paper, film, Charlie Chaplin, it's writers, it's athletes like in the Olympic Museum. So all of these different aspects of life kind of have a museum, and there's like an art to it. So I thought that was also kind of cool. The next thing that was kind of big, and it also involves a trip, was my recent filming of another LinkedIn learning course. And as I say this, Bogi is trying to crawl on top of Tanner because Chippy is in Tanner's lap, and that's somehow unacceptable. And also, Bogi, for your information, dogs are not allowed in the studio. Bogi. Spray. So anyways, we just went and came back to, we were in Carpinteria filming my next course for LinkedIn Learning, which is all about architectural materials. And I ended up driving there with my daughter and Chippy last week. And we spent a few days on the LinkedIn campus filming this course. And I was just telling Tanner before we started filming, dogs are not allowed on the LinkedIn campus. I mean, it's a big deal. It's like, this is Microsoft. This is like the KGB, and I show up, there was another woman actually filming the show, and she shows up, like with a purse and another blouse for the, I show up with wardrobe, a dog, a kid, all these materials. And yeah, the entourage. But anyways, everybody was amazing. It was an amazing experience in several different ways. One, it reminded me originally when I went, this was maybe 3 or 4 years ago, when I filmed my first course, like what that experience was like. I've never been in front of a camera. I've never read off of a teleprompter, like all these different things, and they made me feel so comfortable. They've, conditioned me to even do this now, and it was wonderful to reconnect with these people all over again. During COVID, we filmed 2 more courses remotely, like here in my house, which is why I'm doing this now out of my house, because that gave me the idea, hey, maybe I can do this and talk even more. But it was also cool to just like reconnect with the people. So, I have a different director now, Jacob Cunningham. So shout out to Jacob, and a different producer, Brittany Bauhaus, and we had a guest producer, Spencer. But it was just cool to even like see some of the people that I worked with so many years ago, like Jeff, who made me a pour over coffee like the first day I got there. It's also nice to have hair and makeup done every day and just be the talent. So I was really pampered, and they have amazing food and chefs and coffee and snacks. And it was such a great experience. And it's so nice to collaborate on this material as well. So as an author, I get to write these scripts, but I have a lot of help just delivering it. And that was amazing. And I'm really hoping that, this course, takes this whole track that I've been doing with LinkedIn, like way beyond where we were. And I think that the in-person filming like really does that, because it brings all these people in the same room. And I think that's so important, and that's why I do these interviews in person. Another amazing kind of serendipitous thing about this filming was, and I'm like fresh out of there, so I'm like still under the influence. I'm exhausted too, but it doesn't show, I hope, is that we filmed a lot of the B-roll for the course about materials in the space that Polana actually designed for LinkedIn, completely separately. As I say this, Bogi is licking his paws, of course. But that was also kind of really cool because we got to show the materials that we used in this space, and you know, how we came to a lot of these decisions and what that's like. So it really like paints the whole picture in this discussion about architectural materials. Lastly, I want to talk a little bit about my daughter, who came to this filming. The minute she stepped on the set, she had total like set etiquette. Like, she was directing me. She was like, "Mom, just like be happy, be happy." And she was amazing. And she did the clapper, and like one of the first day of filming, Jacob texted me this screenshot. They have to do like a sample edit of one of the videos, just so that the higher ups can approve it, and make, you know, so that we can make sure that we're on the right track. And he's sending me this text later that evening, and he's like, "Oh my God, I had to share this with you. This is the first kind of shot, and it's still Nika with the clapper, but her face is so serious." She's like, you know, on it. She's like focused. She's waiting. She's like, "Let's go, guys. Let's film this thing." And she said, so Jacob said, like, if I could hire her legally, she's 10, I would. So that was like so amazing how she just kind of like became this production assistant somehow. So it was such an amazing, great thing to see, and I'm so happy about that. Chippy was also very charming. He charmed everybody. And yeah, that's the LinkedIn. So I first want to talk about Jade and Danny of Modern for All. When we first, I guess, were talking about this this interview, I didn't know them. They are the first, I think, people on the show that I interview that are not like my buddies or clients or someone I knew before, that I knew like what we can talk about. And so and also they live like and work like quite a drive away, and I think they took this like super seriously, and they brought their own assistant, and it like they, you know, we coordinated this like way ahead of time. And I was like, when they were coming, I was like, "Oh my God, these people think I'm a big deal." You know, they must think I'm a big deal. I was like, Tanner, like, wow, like they are driving for like 2 hours for this. So I really, first of all, appreciate that. And then I told them that when they got here, and we were all laughing about it. But they were like, "Well, you kind of are," but whatever. I mean, it was just like so cool that they really like wanted to be here, and I'm so happy that I met them. That was the first in-person conversation we had, and they were such a delight, and I love talking with them. They have such great energy. I love what they do. I love their process. They know so much about this period of design that I'm nuts about. And they go about it in a very, like, I was so impressed, like, with their modesty. And for some, you know, they could have like showed up here and been like, "Oh, you know," but no, they were just like so grounded and grateful. And they brought us pastries, and I think we had a few drinks here and there. Yeah, they were such a delight, and I'm so happy I met them. And I'm realizing that this, you know, podcast is also giving me an opportunity to meet people like that. So that was awesome. Then we also had Raquel Gay, who showed up in all her glamour and glitz. And we just had like a really cool conversation. She's like somebody that's so dynamic and creative in her own way. So that was really nice. I felt like her episode was almost like an Oprah like interview slash moment. We talked about our we talked about our families. She talked a lot about her husband. I think she's obsessed with him. In a good way, in a very healthy way. And so Raquel is somebody that I met through work. She kind of is a client, but we just hit it off. And she has like all these other ideas of like, you know, what she wants to do, and is definitely an embodiment of somebody who understands deeply that their profession doesn't necessarily define who they are, and that you can express yourself through just different things that you do. So she runs the marketing for this health and wellness clinic that we're working on together. That's going to open in January in Beverly Hills. It's called Sit-In Clinic. But at the same time, she's a mixologist, and she runs a side business, you know, where, you know, they make parties for people. So I think that's so much fun. And she's a very like fun, genuine person, and she's a mom, and she's just like, she's like 10 in 1, like really. Lastly, my guest Milu Nikolic is somebody like that I've known for a very long time. He was visiting here with his 2 sons, and we've known each other through another dear friend, Nina. And it was great to reconnect with him. He's one of the smartest people I know. I'd say that, I think I said that like a million times. And he started a school. So he's somebody who's been in finance his whole life. And guess what? He started a private school. So he ventured into education, K through 12. And he describes in the episode why he did that and why that was important to him. But like, again, like, you don't have to just do one thing in life. And there's so many different ways that we can contribute and kind of expand our own worldview. So now, not only that he has this private school, like they're also creating online programs where they can teach different languages and all these different things to young people and so forth. So that was like a true delight to have him here. He was here on vacation, so I roped him into doing this right before they left. And yeah, those were some really cool guests that we had on the show. All right, so we talked about the guests that we had on the show, which were amazing. Some upcoming guests, like I'm not sure when we're going to schedule them. One of them is Kim. She's like a super woman, businesswoman. I love her. She's in the beauty and makeup industry. So I'm hoping she can like help me amp up my presence in that sense. Which actually filming, the thing that I mentioned did I mention that? Like I had hair and makeup at LinkedIn like every day. That was really nice. It was hard coming back to real life where obviously that just never happens. So those were some of the guests. So Kim is, I'm trying to figure out like when she's going to come. One other person that I really want on the show is my yoga instructor, Bridget. That would be really cool. If she's like such a mentor in some ways. So I'm all about that. And who else? I'm not sure. Let's just leave it at that. You'll be surprised. Let's see. My next topic that I want to talk about is sponsors. I'm going to kind of like be unrolling a sponsorship / partnership program. And I don't want this really to be like a super commercial thing and like make you like interrupt this so that I can tell you all about the supplements I take, in the middle of the show. But I actually want to have sponsors because I want to kind of expand the reach of this show. And I think it's always a good thing to involve kind of the community that you're already in. So I'll be doing that very soon. Another important kind of thing that I wanted to mention is something that's kind of happening with me and my work, and that's working with young people. And I love working with young people, but I also hate working with young people. I'm probably gonna get into trouble. Like, I'm not ageist. Like, I really don't think that age matters. And I love working with young people because I feel like when you work with young people or when you hang out with young people, you get first of all, you know what's cool. That's one thing. So you're always kind of in the know, music wise, fashion wise, whatever wise. Young people are very savvy, I feel like, with a lot of technology, sometimes not. But I think what I want to talk about is, I think there's a cultural shift a little bit in how we perceive work, depending on the generation that we belong to. As I say this, Tanner is yawning. But I'm finding that sometimes younger people actually value lifestyle maybe more than work, and I'm like a diehard about some of my projects and my work, and I might also be like a little bit of a workaholic, in maybe a good way, maybe in a bad way. So I value lifestyle, I value wellness, but I also feel like focus is so important. And I feel like that might be missing sometimes for some reason with working with young people or certain young people. And the other thing too that I think is so important in a good way in working with young people is having our minds open. Sometimes I think when young architects or whatever professionals like enter whatever profession they're entering, there's this idea of like, hey, here I am, I graduated, I am ready to make my mark on the world. And I love that enthusiasm. But at the same time, the learning is just kind of beginning too. And I invite young people to have an open mind about what their career will look like. And I teach some career development type stuff, also on LinkedIn Learning. And I think that's a really important lesson. Recently also, I love quotes. I saw this monk say something, and he did elaborate on a little bit, talking about how sometimes, when you have a problem or you're challenged, it's also good to just forget everything you know. Like, just like spill the old tea, pour yourself a new cup of tea, and take it from there. And I interpret that, like, for me, being at my, stage, age, it's good to have an open mind. I don't think that anything I've learned so far, I'm like set, here I am telling you, shoving it up you, how you need to do things or what you need to do. But I also kind of feel like that's my own attitude toward myself. And I think it's always important to have an open mind, maybe a blank slate, so that you can receive new information, new education, new knowledge. And I kind of feel like that's an important message that I've learned from working with young people. So when you're starting something, say I'm an architect and just started working for a company, maybe I have an idea, okay, this is my role, this is what I want to be in this company, and why am I not there? I think as a young person, it's such a privilege to be at that stage, because that's when you absorb the most, and I think that's a wonderful thing. Lastly, one little thought or just encounter I had. I was at a gas station. I was at Costco gas station yesterday, and it's a gas station. I mean, how mundane can you be? And you know, everyone's there filling up gas, and one of the gas attendants was humming like some kind of song. But actually, he had a great voice, and you can't see his face. He's wearing some kind of like cover or whatever, glasses, hat, but you can hear his voice and you can hear the music, and it's some kind of like gospel, like I don't know like what the genre is, but like it's beautiful, and he has a beautiful voice. It's like kind of like a little high pitched too. How do you call that? No, never mind. There's a term for it. uh, but I was like, you know, I kind of stopped in my track, you know, like it was a beautiful voice in the middle of this totally like ugly, you know, scene, and it brought a smile to my face. And so, apropos of this whole thing about how creativity belongs in the realm of the everyday, it really like inspired me, and I think that this is kind of the message of this whole podcast, like how we can infuse the everyday, the mundane, the ugly, with a spark of beauty, a spark of creativity. And as I looked around, I saw another woman kind of getting into her car, and she was smiling too. So I think this very small thing can be so infectious, and I think this way we can change the world for the better. So that's my final message. That's it. Cut.
You should have talked about your date more.
I didn't have a date, dude. Plus, this is like censored, super censored information, super classified. Oh, yeah. So, this is from the Charlie Chaplin Museum. Love it. Yeah.